Jason's running around the studio right now, knocking shit over. Welcome back, everybody. We are here for our creational episode again in the law series on the law of opposites. Now, this is going to be quite an interesting episode here because this is a function of balance that we're talking about within the creational universe. And understanding the law of opposites is going to do us a lot of good.
You're the good, I'm the bad, Alex.
Yeah. Look at the polarities between us,
I know,
right?
yeah. I had to get your manuscript.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, that's good. But the important part about the law of opposites is that if we look at everything in life as the battery, right? You got a Duracell. Everybody knows what a Duracell looks like. It's got the positive and the negative side.
Right.
If you put two negative sides in one direction in an electronic device, what happens?
Oh, it will.
It doesn't turn on.
Yeah, it just doesn't turn on.
It doesn't work at all, right? The current doesn't flow through it properly. Right. So there's the natural electromagnetic current of this planet,
right?
Okay, with like our Van Allen belts, is that has its own polarity. You have your north and your south poles, and out of those things comes the electromagnetic current. And your body, like that thing, same thing, has those same grounding currents that come out of it.
You know what's exciting though is if you can take that, reverse it, and all you're doing is reversing the flow.
You're reversing the flow.
But the electrons are still going, however they want to move. And here's the cool part about that is that if you can reverse the flow, then you have a control over your environment. Yes.
And now the law of opposites not only applies to physics, but it's also going to apply to your thought.
Right.
Okay. So let's break down some of these notes here for our listeners. Oh, I didn't tell you this before we even jump into this. Everybody, cool story. So every Tuesday night I go out and meditate, and I meditate on the Mesa. So 2 weeks ago, 2 meditations ago, I'm walking out there, and I'm with another individual that comes out to meditate. Nobody really showed up that week. There's just one other person. This guy's a regular all the time. Real nice dude, local here. And I'm looking up, and I'm like, I love stargazing because it's real dark out there on the Mesa. You can see the full Milky Way.
Right.
Everything. Mars was at its closest setting to us at that point that it's going to be for like the next decade. And there's a lot of different types of satellites. You got the geostationaries, you have the ones that move, you have parabolic ones that have these big like reflective dishes on it. And usually those catch the sunlight and they'll like flare up real quick. And if you're really lucky in a rare event, the parabolic will actually guide sunlight down in pure darkness and light up a very isolated area on the Earth.
That's cool.
It's a very rare event. It's actually, the only reason I knew about it is because it happened to me back when I was in Massachusetts. I'm out walking the dog. It's late at night. And I'm standing by these, these big juniper shrubs.
Right.
And the dog's, taking a dump. And I'm looking up and like, oh, what a neat satellite. And then I watch the parabolic turn and you watch it glow, right? It gets brighter. And then all of a sudden there was a huge glowing flash or in my localized area with me and the dog. It was the most improbable thing I've ever been, experienced. Right. So I've been staring at satellites for a very long time. I'm pretty astute with astronomy. I've always loved it. So 2 weeks ago, we're out there and we're walking to the meditation point. It takes about 20 minutes walking across the Mesa to get where you want to go to settle in. And I'm looking up, I'm like, that's an awfully bright satellite. Brighter than most. And then I realized, that's not a satellite. I'm like, maybe that's a shooting star. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, there's no tail on that. And I was like, why is it squiggling across the sky? It was moving almost like a zigzag pattern. It looked very off-put.
Right.
And the second I told the gentleman next to me, he looks up, he's staring at it. It goes from this beautiful, brilliant white light, and it goes to this very tight red ball. And then it shoots up straight into the atmosphere.
That's crazy.
It was totally wild.
Yeah, so you were able to...
I'm out there all the time in the dark.
Right.
I see everything in the sky. And there was just this most beautiful zigzagging object. And the second we became conscious of it and looked at it, you watch it go from this beautiful, brilliant white light, and it shrinks into this tight, deep, deep red. The deepest red you've ever seen. And then you watch it curve up and launch out.
Was it the same color as you like the sunsets here? Was it that
No, was it darker.
Like that vibrant? Oh, so it was like a dark, like a blood red.
Yeah, but it was like, but it had like a lot of power to it. You could tell there's a lot of energy because it was like a blood red with a high output. You know what I mean? And
it was piercing.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then to watch it actually take off.
That's so amazing.
It curved up into the thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
There was an identified flying object.
It was phenomenal. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I just felt like I had to share that.
I know here in New Mexico, that's what happens all the time. I know people are seeing stuff all the time. And you called me one day and we saw the one on the mountain.
Yeah, we got great pictures of it too.
Yeah, that one was incredible.
Yeah.
So brilliant.
Yeah, it was
so bright.
It was which was cool about it, but you know how it was bright like white to us? Mm-hmm. So when I put the telescope on it, when I was on the mountain, it was orange.
Oh, wow.
It was teardrop. I love that. Tear shopping. No, it was teardrop. I can't even say it. It was teardrop shaped.
Well, it's like you've been dealing with lawyers in a good way. So.
Yeah, no. It's
after you deal with, speak of the law of opposites.
Speaking of the law of opposites, don't bill me for it. But yeah, teardropped, and it was translucent in the center, and it was orange.
That's crazy.
But when we looked at it from a distance when it was on top of Sandia,
it was very bright white.
Yeah.
Like, almost like if you're looking really close into like a Christmas light.
Yeah.
Those real LED white ones.
That's correct.
That's what it was like.
No,
Not that I've ever done that. But
yeah.
I used to do that as a kid.
No,
I'm going to put my finger in the electric socket and stare at this bulb really close.
Speaking about electrical current, it's like you ever touch like a horse, like wires that keep like animals in?
Yes, yeah. Electric fence. I was just talking about this.
Yeah.
2 days ago.
It's not like painful. It just like causes you to like grip down harder, and it's very
right.
It's like a buzz, very intense.
I actually
buzz.
showed this is a funny story. So, was talking to a guy. He in the middle of the night he hears some commotion. This part's not funny, but as we're getting into it, the story. So he goes out there, and there's these two really large men, kind of obese, and they're leaning over his fence, and the fence is starting to fall, and they're trying to grab. He has one of those real expensive, real muscular pit bulls.
Oh yeah,
that he got from somebody or something.
Some breeder.
But it's super loving female. Like that loves people.
It's the classic Caesar Milan pit bull.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they're trying to grab it and take it.
So they were trying to take the pit bull?
Take his dog.
His world-class dog?
That he loves, yeah. So he ended up, yelling, screaming at him or whatever, and then they, dropped the dog and left. But I was telling him, I was like, well, at the top of the fence, they have the little plastic things you can buy and you plug it in, it's an inverter, and you can make an electric fence up there.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I was like showing him on Amazon.
Yeah.
You can buy this and you can buy this. And then and then he set a camera up and I'm like, this is perfect. You can,
there you go. He's all
now
set.
You can zap them.
Yeah. Just give him a little buzz.
Yeah. Because they're stealing.
Listen, if it keeps horses away,
right.
Horses are like 2, 3 times, 4 times the weight of a human being.
Because they are imposing on his free will.
Yeah.
So
come on, just let the guy have his property and his dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Go get yourself a dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Go adopt one.
Yeah,
don't steal them. Adopt one.
So let's get into, before I get into the practical stuff, because I have a lot of practical stuff, I want us to get into understanding the law of opposites.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's read us through it.
And this is your writings. An opposite pole is placed to the striving freely based on the creational law teaching. Mm-hmm. That there must always be 2 poles. A plus and a minus, a pro and a contra, a negative and a positive.
Okay, so let's break that down. So what we're saying here is that if in a creational law, we cannot actually evolve if there's nothing opposing us in our thoughts. Okay, so if there's nothing that we can actually challenge our current way of thinking with, we can't integrate past it. So if there's a lack of balance between an opposing force, then we have no way to learn. If it lacks balance, if you're just, constantly just like only the positives flowing out, well, then you can never truly advance from that point because there's nothing that checks it in place and asks for that positive charge to become even stronger.
I love that.
It finds a level of stagnation, right? So evolution has to happen with polarity. There has to be an opposite. There has to be a contra to that initial point. And even if you're, say, a really, negative person, okay, you're going to get inundated with a lot of very positive things.
Yeah.
It has to balance it out in some sort of function, right? And so you can make a choice. So do I want to integrate the positive, reverse my poles? Remember how we talked about reversing polarity? Or do I want to say, heck no, I'm going to be more negative, right? And I'm going to take that and I'm going to learn to be more negative. So if I understand how people act very positively, I can use that to my advantage.
Yeah, it's self.
Yeah, it's very self.
Yeah, instead of self-others or self-loving.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's self. So when that has to balance out. You can't be all about the self.
Now consider that. What did you just say? You said self.
Right.
Self is two of the same poles.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Does that not make sense?
Yes.
You can't evolve with 2 of the same poles. So if you walk around being selfish all day long, what's your evolution going to look like? You're not. You're going to stagnate. You have to think in a manner of self and other self.
Yes.
Because that affords you the proper polarity and the proper learning and the proper perspective to actually move forward.
I was thinking about it, and you can correct me on this, but I was thinking of like...
You're wrong.
I'm wrong. My ego self and then my eternal self.
Sure.
And then the eternal self would be My ego self would be, I don't want to use the word negative, but it would be the selfish side of me, always trying to protect. And there's good parts about the ego.
That's necessary.
And then the eternal self would be that one that is looking always for greater good.
Well, and that greater good sits beyond the physical.
Right.
So now you're towing on two separate lines here. So when we look at the ego, it's a very materialistic idea of who we are.
Right.
So if we're talking about a function of the polarity with the ego, it's like, okay, I know I need to protect this body, and I know I need certain sustenance to sustain myself, right? Otherwise, I'm going to wither away and die. So that ego is actually protecting your basal needs, like if you're looking at the Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Right.
Okay. But then when you do that and you're like, okay, now I need to step beyond that. How do I grow further? Now I got to look into the more extended part of myself, which is going to be my spirit. It's a thing that's, it's timeless. So now you've moved from the material world and you're also working with the opposite pole of the material. That's the immaterial.
Oh, right.
And that's the spirit. So that's the difference with, when you start functioning with the ego and, areas of the non-ego, right? So that's the material world and the non-material. It's having both of those poles. The opening to our podcast, you're walking on the cliff's edge, right? You have the material, you have the existent land, and then the non-existent one. And stepping over to it means you're living your life in both of those polarities. And the further you step away, you tread into that opposite polarity so that you can learn more.
Yeah, it's the same as being in touch with your subconscious during dreaming.
Yeah, most definitely.
You're balancing those two in that moment.
Yeah, and if you can learn, that's a very good point. And we talked about this in our earlier dreaming episode, is that when your subconscious begins to develop with dreaming, right? It's a lot like an affirmation. The more you recall that dream, the more you have a deeper connection with that opposite polarity, that immaterial polarity that's happening in your subconscious, right? Apart from your physical state. And so when you find that balance there, then you get even more learning because now I'm listening to the subconscious. I'm listening to what it had been telling me. So now I get more experience from the opposite pole in an immaterial state. So it's like the negative, not in a bad way, but it's the opposite polarity, immaterial. So it's almost like you have two states of the poles.
But I think what a lot of people aren't realizing is like, okay, I want to go the eternal aspect of things. So I'm going to deny everything that's earthly, everything that's ego-driven, and I'm going to go hide in a cave and I'm just going to meditate. It's I don't want to say bipolar, but you're almost like
it's unipolar.
Yeah, it's you're not balanced. You have to be balanced. That's how you can't have no ego.
No, this experience only.
The ego is a good thing. Did you see that video of the runner with the cougar this week?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then the cougar kept trying to attack him.
Well, he didn't realize that you actually have to step to the cougar.
Right.
And this is a weird
comment. Then it had babies. He was like,
am I correct about this? And I've been saying this, and I don't know why it's stuck in my head. If I'm trying to get rid of a cougar, right, or a mountain lion, I'm supposed to actually shove my fist down its mouth.
Yeah, right.
I know that sounds insane, but I'm pretty sure that's the way you do it.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that.
You step towards it, and when it actually opens up to growl, and it freaks the thing out, and it's gone.
Right, yeah, it's gone.
It won't bite down on your arm.
No, he kept because you never want to look like prey.
So interesting point. I'm glad you brought that up. Last night when I was meditating, another person had showed up to the group, but they brought a dog this time. It's late at night and we're out on the mesa. And at the end of the meditation, the dog comes over to me. And the gentleman's like, I've never seen my dog ever leave my side. It was a really interesting concept. The guy is sitting there meditating and the dog sits there and meditates like in his lap with him.
Oh, that's so cool.
Never barks, never makes a sound, just knows what it has to do.
Right.
Oh, meditation time, I sit here.
Right.
And so the dog comes over to me and then animals have a scent, more so than us. And coyotes are hungry. And so the dog starts growling while I'm looking up at the stars at the end of the meditation. And when I looked to my right, I had 6 bounding over, like almost like that Australian meme online. I'm bounding over the dogs,
Right.
So there's 6 coyotes 10 feet away.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and so if I sat there timid, they would have come closer to try and get this dog. But I actually got up, made a lot of noise, clapping, screaming at them, and it scared them off. But that's what you have to do. You have to stand to it.
Right, yes.
So you have to be the opposite polarity.
Right.
So if I double down on the quiet submissiveness or slow sneaking, right, if I stick with that energy, they'll just come right over. But if you hammer them with the opposite polarity, then the coyote learn that, I don't need to be, this is the wrong environment for me. We're not going to get this meat tonight.
Yeah, but like you said, that opportunity closed because you created that. You created the opposite polarity.
That's exactly correct.
And opportunities open by creating opposite polarity.
So now consider this. Like you said, if someone goes into a cave to meditate,
right,
you have a choice So through the law of free will, law of interaction, and the law of cause and effect, you have a choice to do something or nothing in your life, action or inaction. And both of those are opposites. Cause and effect is also an opposite. This is the holistic idea of what happens here with the creational laws. They all play into one another.
Right.
They bleed. So if you look at those cause and effects, like, okay, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to meditate. Well, when you do that, you lack 50% of the experience of your life by not touching those other polarities.
Right. Yes.
So when you might think, okay, I just want to be existential, right? I want to live in that more elevated state, but without that proper grounding, without the negative polarity of Mother Earth to be there with you, to feel that material world, you can't truly understand and value what's going on in the existential spiritual state that you're trying to be in 24/7. And this is something that I had actually gone through, because when I had begun to meditate, I just dove right into it. That is all I did all the time. And I felt that I actually became to a point where it's like, I need to actually ground myself with other things that are going on. Not that I was in a state that was unreal, but it lacked the balance that was actually required. And I was missing other experience and other perspective by not bleeding in what was normal before the meditative state into my meditative knowledge.
It's almost like escapism.
It's a form of escapism.
Like, I see a lot of times like that, like whether, like people go to church, or they may be part of a spiritual organization, or they may go live on a farm, that's all. And then you've created these little bubbles that you're in, and you're never, and so or whether you're, extremely privileged and you live in a gated community and you only talk to people that are, the same as you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. So you're living this one polarity.
Well, think about the gate. What does a gate do?
Yeah, it keeps people out.
Yeah, it's
the bad people.
It's two pressures,
yes.
right?
Right.
So you have a social pressure on the inside and one on the outside, and you're creating a boundary line. The boundary line is where those polarities sit. If we looked at the original readings of the Bhagavad Gita, what happened? You had the two polarities of both armies, but Krishna's in the center, and that's where that dialogue is actually ensuing, is understanding that life is a function of those opposites. It's a function of those polarities. And your comment about the bubble, a bubble can only exist if it sits in equilibrium, if there's perfect opposites putting perfect pressure on both sides. And so we try to find our evolutionary striving is understanding those poles so we can live in that beautiful equalized state in the center, where we recognize the power in a positive and negative. Not in a positive and negative sense, like that's evil, that's terrible. No, in the positive and negative, that something has to balance out the other side. And living in that balance properly affords us that beautiful, delicate, equalized state, much like the bubble.
Yeah, and I think you said it perfectly there. Whenever you look at the idea of being like spiritual or spiritual leader or guru or whatever these names, there's always this idea that you need to withdraw and join. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like the other aspect of it would be, and I think Jesus was a perfect example of this, is he lived a very common, normal life. He wasn't in a palace. He didn't have a lot of, and he went and interacted, and he was always traveling on foot from city to city, talking and sharing, and he lived with his disciples, and he never was at the point to where he decided like, okay, I have 5,000 people that showed up, let me now, and they're giving money, so let me take this money, Judas, the whole story with that. Let me take this money, and then I'm going to go get a nicer place. I'm influential now. I'm a leader. He always kept, with those years of his ministry, he always kept this, and I'm not saying I'm saying money or none of that is bad, but he always kept this beautiful balance of understanding and being able to relate with that culture and the people that were in that atmosphere, and he played on that level playing field.
Yeah, so
you didn't have to go up to him.
He didn't have to go to the top of the triangle. Consider Maslow's hierarchy, right? The needs were met. So once material needs are met, once you maintain that polarity with the balance and then of practicing the spiritual, what else can you ask for?
Yes.
You're on a perfect foundational platform for growth.
Yes.
To get to what the Germans called the zeal. Right. The zeal's that focal point. It's the top of the pyramid, right? It's the apex. And that's a point of high focus. And that only happens when the proper foundation is in place. And you got to understand those polarities to get there.
Yeah, I love that. Because we were talking earlier about different theories and stuff like that of how the pyramids were made. And but when you look at it and see the perfect geometry and see everything that happened, you can see how that foundation had to be built absolutely perfect to create. It perfectly lines up with.
Well, it's a geometrical figure, right?
Yeah.
So that means the very first cornerstone, it's called the chief cornerstone sits on top. So the cornerstone, which is very confusing, the chief cornerstone. Yeah. And I believe they call Jesus the chief cornerstone.
Yes.
Because he's the zeal. He's the top of the pinnacle. But the cornerstone decides the entire layout for everything else. So if you understand, even with your own life, it's like, where am I going to lay my cornerstone?
Right.
Where am I going to sit it with my polarities? Am I going to put this stone in a proper place where it's going to sit in equilibrium, balance with the land? So if you take that same sort of structure or idea,
right,
then you can essentially, once that foundation is primed, even with the first stone, you know where you're headed with your life. Sometimes you got to set down a new foundation.
You have to. And I think, using Jesus, he used the word of like being a shepherd, with sheep,
Mm-hmm.
and in those times, especially in the biblical times, the shepherd and the sheep were kind of one, and the shepherd was there to protect. If a wolf, came into, he would go out there and he had a staff, and he would, drive the wolf away, but they would eat, live, and sleep with, the sheep. There wasn't this like a farm and then they were in a pen. They were open, and it was a part of leadership. And it's that model, I think, as you begin to grow, as you begin to understand this, as you develop leadership, there still has to be that and there was an old book I read a long time ago and it smelled like sheep, but it was a leadership book, like a Christian leadership book. And I love that. There should always be a smell of the world on us.
So that's a really,
what I mean?
That's that's a nice point. I like that.
Yeah. But I'm just saying there should always be because people that are listening to this podcast
or watching,
are watching. I mostly listen to stuff, but I want to make sure I understand. I want people to understand this. What I'm saying, there has to have this humility that has to be about understanding polarities.
Yeah,
like you have to understand if somebody's living in, like you said, a very negative person, and they're living in that polarity. And we're having this right now with everything going on, especially here in the United States, elections and all that. This negative person is just living in that polarity. I don't need to judge them. I don't need to distance myself from them, because that's the thing too. Only be around positive people. And the last 5 people that you were, you're only successful as the 5 people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, keep going. No, you're on it. Keep going.
No, but I'm just saying, you need those type of people in your life. I'm opposite of you.
Yeah, you are.
I'm a totally different person than you are.
Yeah.
I do totally different things than you do.
Yes, you do.
But we have an amazing friendship based off, and I would probably say we're opposite polarities, probably.
We definitely are. Yeah.
But and
I have honestly a much more feminine vibe to me than you.
Yeah, I don't think though. I think you're pretty manly, bro.
Listen.
Maybe you have long hair, but that doesn't.
No, I'm manly, but I appreciate the softer things.
I've seen you where you would 100% defend your fiance or your dogs or anything.
10,000.
You're probably more extroverted than I am.
Oh, I'm definitely more extroverted.
Yeah, and you will call somebody out in a heartbeat.
Well, again, that's the difference. It's in polarity, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's extrovert.
Yeah, I'm introverted and you're extroverted.
Introverted, right? And then, so how do you find the blend of both? But you're right though. So let's consider this. You can't avoid, someone that is an opposite.
Right.
And when you consider something like that, it throws you off balance because you're only living in that one section of polarity. So if we look at the current political climate, I have absolutely zero time for politics.
Yes, same.
I don't even read the news.
No, I don't want to have
not a fucking blip of it.
Yeah, I don't want that negativity.
So what I look at is like, okay, what's this guy saying? What's this guy saying? Okay, they polarize themselves.
Yes.
How do you neutralize and how do I learn from what they have said and just be like, that's absolute nonsense. It's rubbish.
Well, I don't even want to hook myself up to that battery.
No, but I'm saying there's so many people that are a part of that, right?
Oh, yes.
So I'm saying if you're in that point when you're looking to both sides and you're like, what are they talking about? Well, listen to the irrationality of that one-sided polarity. You'll be able to, when someone speaks, you'll understand that they lack a balance when they talk.
Right.
There's a lack of equanimity in their speech. There's a lack of unification, right?
But you have to get to the point, and this is what I was talking about leadership, is you can't influence that unless you're willing to. How can you influence somebody And how can you be influenced? Teach, learn, learn, teach.
Yeah.
If I don't hang out with you and talk to you, you being opposite of me, I've learned a ton from you.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So, and with totally different viewpoints and everything else, and the influence that you've given me has been tremendous. If I would only hang out with introverted people that are like me, we would just all agree. That's why it's so important, even in this political climate now. I listened to a 2.5 hour podcast the other day with the guy that's an anarchist. Mm-hmm. I always just dismissed that. My anarchy? Structure, mine. And we don't need to get into the whole thing, but I always thought it was horrific. I always thought it was horrific. Then he spelled it out in such a beautiful way.
Let me tell you about anarchy, why you don't need these other things. Yeah. How we can sustain ourselves and we can choose a specific person.
Decentralization.
It's what it is.
100% responsibility. I was like, I'm all in.
No, I know. It's really funny how there's a couple ways to look at that, right?
Right.
But again, anarchy is like the deepest, most neutralized aspect of those polarities.
Yes.
You've decentralized everything. So it's a state of node balance between everyone.
Yes.
But when we think anarchy, like the current verbiage of how we look at it is like destruction, deterioration of government.
It's none of that.
It's like, it's hate, burning, riots, all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's none of that. The ability to be able to, for people to take 100%, the chief message or the chief cornerstone
is responsibility.
In anarchy is individual responsibility.
And it's a very interesting concept.
Yes.
Yeah, it's cool. And that also requires, but that's, it's another function of opposites at that point.
Right.
How does responsibility happen? So if you just think about this, I can be responsible or irresponsible.
Right.
Polar opposites, right? I go to the North Pole or the South Pole. I can choose to be active or inactive.
Right.
I can choose to interact or not interact. I can choose to think or not think.
Right.
Your life is a function of these opposites. And these opposites are your choices. And that goes into your, law of interaction, cause and effect, free will. Okay? And your law of motion. Which one do I want to move into? Do I want to move or not move? Well, you can't have one. The motion has to have non-motion too at the same time. All of these things are required to have balance. If we didn't, again, our creational structure would fold in on itself. Okay? So we have space.
Right. We
have matter and we have dark matter or antimatter, right? Something has to balance the other thing out. It's always there. So if you're ever looking, if you're in a situation, you're like, where's the balance? Where's the learning? What is not being seen?
Yes.
That's not the totality of the whole picture. What you're currently witnessing is not everything.
No.
Think about the balance. Think about the thing that is actually accruing towards the development of what you're currently experiencing.
Yeah, you have that. What you experienced the other night when you saw that, if you want to call it a UFO or whatever.
Of course it's a UFO.
UFO,
flying object.
Yeah. Everybody always, that word is so...
They're like triggered.
Yeah, it's triggered with that word. But that you have no idea what was behind that.
I don't have a clue.
Yeah, you don't know if it was a spacecraft and there was aliens in it and what type of aliens and what type of technology are they using, what was their engine.
Tell you what, it was better than our technology.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I watched a rocket take off, go to Florida. I tell you what, nothing takes off that quick. No, we have.
I want to, there was a scripture in the Bible and it talks about the law of polarity. And I want you to talk to this because I think it's really...
Bring it up.
But it says nothing operates except by the one swallowing up the other. Mm-hmm. The one using the other as a means of manifestation.
Remember how I said, so swallowing up.
Right.
That swallowing is the integration.
Yes.
So Jonah in the belly of the whale.
Right.
I don't know why I just dove to that, but it felt right. Okay.
Well, we can go there.
So Jonah's in the belly of the whale. He gets swallowed up. He actually physically go into that other polarity.
Yes.
And he has learning that happens inside the belly of the whale for 3 days. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no longer how it was. And when he comes out of that,
it's a representation of Jesus being 3 days.
Okay.
Being buried 3 days.
So again, it's that integration story, right? It's that metaphorical dying. It's the life and death.
And then the rebirth,
which requires that balance, right?
Right.
And it's that constant cycle. And you see the rebirth. It's a function of nature.
But I mean, the story is a direct representation of, because he went in a boat opposite of where he's supposed to go.
Yeah, so he goes in the opposite direction.
He goes in the opposite direction.
He's on the water, which is an opposing force to the air.
And then God brings a storm, and then the boat.
What is the storm?
The storm. Yeah.
Storm's a polar opposite in the weather, right?
Yes, yeah.
So it's stability and instability.
Yes, stability. Exactly.
We can keep talking about opposites all day long, and we'll just prove to people that the law of opposites exists.
So then, so the sailors, they're innocent. They're on board, which is another thing is by you running and doing this, you can drag other people into your bullshit.
Yeah.
So they're like, what the hell are we going to do? We're going to die. The storm's so severe. It's getting worse and worse. Jonah is sleeping in the bottom of the boat, not even realizing the storm.
Of course not. He's cozy as can be.
Yeah, running in the opposite direction. And when we seek comfort, you see where I'm going?
This is a lot like comfort's a lot like retirement. Okay?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Learning stops.
Yes.
There is no swallowing. There is no integration at that point. You choose to no longer experience deeper polarities.
Yes.
You said, "Oh, I've learned enough. I've achieved things materially. I'm all done at this point."
Excuses.
Yeah. You've created excuses. You create things that actually separate yourself from experience. There's a disunification.
And then the sailors come and be like, oh, I can't believe you're sleeping. We're about ready to die here. What are we going to do? He's thinking. He's like, I know what it's me. It's, God's, teaching him a lesson. And so he's like, throw me overboard and you guys will be fine. So, he's just like, throw me
more into the breach, dear friends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll give up my life. I know God is angry at me. So he they throw him overboard and instantly everything stops. Mm-hmm. And then the whale comes and grabs him. And then the whale spits him. This is interesting. So he's supposed to go to the land of Nineveh. It was a heathen land and then share, the story of God and all that. And he didn't do that. So the whale, for 3 days, he's in this belly of the whale, absolutely miserable and everything else. And this has actually happened in real life. People have been stuck in whales and lived.
No way.
Yes, you should read about it. It's really interesting. Yeah, in bellies because they're so big.
Well, yeah, big whale. Yeah.
And so he spits them out on the shore of Nineveh. So what I love about this story, and this was perfect that you went into this, it's you can get there to the destination.
Sure.
How you get there is depending, and all these other laws can play.
And the speed at which you get there, right?
Yeah.
And that destination is your evolution.
Yes. You may be going the opposite way in your own free will,
peak.
But the law of polarity,
yeah,
it's going to bring you to your purpose and mission in life.
That's correct.
It may not be this life. It may even be the next one. But you're on a trajectory, a path.
That is a very definitive
creational path.
It's a creational path of learning. It's the striving. It's the law of striving, the law of evolution. Yes. We're all on that path. We all have an end destination. And
you can fight it all you want.
Go ahead.
And you can be in tons of bellies of whales or in the bottom of boats.
Delay the infinite process that we're in. If you want to do 1 million more lives, be my guest.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I love that. So light, dark, hot, cold, sweet, bitter, hard, soft, bitter. Yeah. Yes, no, positive, negative, electricity. We talked about that. Proton, electron.
Yep.
Of the atom.
Well, the atom couldn't function. Think about that at the base level. All of our matter sits in that state of balance. Things moving in and out of the atom, right? You have free electrons flying out, things grabbing onto this left and right. They have to sit in balance.
Right.
Okay? If you think about quantum mechanics, if you look at the spin, okay, quantum spin, it's positive or negative, which denotes a left or a right. If you look at a hurricane, it's going to spin in a certain direction depending on where it is in the hemisphere. The Earth, even its weather patterns are balanced.
Yes, exactly.
Our seasons are opposites. If I'm in Australia during the summer, it's Christmas time over here.
Yeah, exactly, yep.
Everything around you screams at these opposites. You live with them all the time.
Well, it's the true reality, but you're living in a different matrix.
Yeah.
Because and you open up to that new game level whenever that new map shows up.
Upgrade.
Whenever you begin to start
up.
seeing these laws, like you just said, in place. One of the things I want to get into is going against the norm. Because I think,
just so I'm like full-time contrarian.
Yeah, I think like using the law of opposites when we look at majority of people. I don't know if that makes sense. A lot of times things that, because when you start to operate this, like I was telling, when I began to study this, because we were going to do this like 2 weeks ago or whatever, so I studied all this, and a statement that I've been telling myself is do the opposite.
I like that.
Okay,
as long as it doesn't.
The alarm is going off. You want to lay in bed. You want to be just a wussy.
Yep.
Do the opposite, Jason. What is that? Well, it's get up, have energy, be positive. Mm-hmm. take your high performance planner, get it out, start going over. I gave one to Alex.
Yeah, a little plug.
I like these. Yeah.
I'm very excited to use this. Thank you again. This is a gift. I want to share. This is a gift from Jason. Thank you, everyone.
And then, but things that are unorthodox, things that are unpopular, things that are unreasonable.
Yeah.
In the world,
I do unreasonable stuff all the time.
I know, but that's good.
But
people need to understand.
But there's a lens to my unreasonable. I'm not just breaking laws, doing irrational things. I'm doing things that are non-reasonable to people from their normal perspective, and I do it with humility and the idea of a greater good in mind.
Yes.
So I'm contrarian. I'm extremely contrarian.
Yes.
You'd have a hard time putting me in a box. Okay. Yes. But from that, I do it with the lens, does this help? Does this unify? So I take the contrarian view as long as it's a unifying view, as long as it's a loving, understanding view. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then what you're saying is you want to walk a different path than the masses.
I want to walk a different path because I see that polarity and that one doesn't work.
Right.
That perspective is not working. So let me test the other one, applying the other creational laws within that lens. Right. And that will put me on the proper path for my own evolution, the evolution of my spirit and my consciousness.
And when we get into this law, one of the things that we can really see is when we see these two polarities, I want to get into intention, because you can bring the right type of energy to your intention by even looking at what you may perceive as being negative.
Yeah, that's correct.
You need to have the balance of both. You need to look at Donald Trump and Joe Biden and look at the positive and negative of each one seeing, and then if they would actually have a civil discourse, I guarantee you they would come. If you took all the politics, all the ego, and took everything away, and you say, honestly, what would best help this country? Yeah. What can we agree on right now that we could get Congress and Senate to agree on?
As a team, rather than saying you run against one another,
yes.
Why don't you tell me in a team effort how both of you can come together,
right?
Take a contrarian path,
yes,
one that'll work,
yes,
okay, and tell me how you're both going to take the best of your ideas to elevate the game.
But I want to get into this energy of intention, because I think this is so important when we look at the law of polarities, because our intention a lot of time is this is like our subconscious mind through.
This is good. I'm already teed up. I'm already teed up. You know how many times? Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Say something happens for you. You're like, man, why did that not work out for me? Mm-hmm. I had the most positive intentions going into that meeting. Yeah. Whatever event you were doing, I was ready to go.
Yes.
Why was I met with so much
affirmations,
conflict, negativity, stubbornness? Why is it that the absolute polar opposite met me when I had the highest intentions, the most positive intentions?
Oh, this is good. Yep.
Because this is the function of the swallowing. This is the integration through your intentions. This is the point of learning. Remember how I said you will be met with the same energy. So you're like, wow, I had the best intentions. I can overcome anything. Well, that's not what it is. You're going to be met with the exact polar, the equalizing force on the other side.
Let's talk about your rock climbing.
Oh, rock climbing's interesting.
Our physical
No, I like rock climbing. Rock climbing's good.
But I mean, you like rock climbing whenever, what are you feeling whenever? It's just not hop on here, learn a few techniques, and then hop on there, and next thing you know, you're at the top.
It doesn't work like that.
What is that other, as you're exerting your energy and intuition, what are you receiving back?
What I'm from the wall?
Yes.
Grip. Seriously, no, that's what I get. I get stability on my path.
Yes.
So I have a path that goes up vertical, or sometimes past vertical, where I'm literally upside down 50 feet up. When I see it with my intention, what my goal is, what my path, what my handholds are going to be, where I'm going to flag, where I'm going to bar door, however the path is going to happen for my climb, I see it ahead of time with the intention. I'll be met with difficulty when I get to that point. But I know that with those intentions, and if I integrate that difficulty properly, it will give me the grip I need to continue to climb on my path.
But the hardest resistance that you get is where you feel the greatest when you overcome it.
That's precisely correct. So I fail a lot all the time with climbing. It's extremely difficult.
Yes.
But once you get to that point and you realize this is an opposing force to my physical nature, this point on the path I'm in. And then it becomes a very mental thing. Can I get past this point on the climb?
Yes.
Right? And I begin to ask
that
myself
mental
this.
part. So you begin to doubt yourself, and then that intention of energy comes.
And then I have to come back and I have to integrate that doubt.
Right.
That doubt's not proper. That's not right. I know I can move past this. I know it's of great difficulty, but doing so will make me that much stronger. And once I figure it out, I'll be able to do this route many times.
Yes.
And what seemed impossible before, what seemed like the most opposing force, you know, now I've actually integrated it properly and I can overcome it.
But you need that opposing force. You need that resistance. The resistance is what builds you as a person.
If I didn't have the resistance on that wall, I would slide off. If I didn't have the resistance, there would be no challenge in my mind.
Yes.
Okay? Those things wouldn't exist. There would be no enjoyment in the evolution of my climbing ability.
Yes.
If I didn't have that resistance. Does that make sense? Apply that metaphor.
But as we're in our comfort little beautiful United States world and our upper middle class lives, and all we do is seek comfort, we don't want a wall.
No, nobody wants the wall.
I don't want to go up that path when I can just sleep on the floor.
No. Listen, that path is where you find the great learning. I want to climb the Himalayas. I want to climb some of the highest peaks. And people ask me, like, why would you even want to do that? What's the risk? What's it all about? I said, it's the viewpoint of perspective.
Yes.
It's the challenge internally within myself to accomplish this. I know that I can do it in my physical state. And it's a question of, am I going to go out and do it? And knowing that I can achieve that, okay, that physical task affords me a certain type of mental perspective, consciousness perspective that I can apply to the rest of my life.
I like that. Yes.
If I can achieve those highest things that people say, that's not possible, that's not probable, right? If I take that contrarian world, that allows me to be like, what you thought was impossible is a true possibility. And I want to be a testament to possibility in my life. I want to be that opposite to what you thought. I want to show people what's possible. I don't want to follow the crowd. I don't want to be a part. I frankly don't want to be a part of the sheep. I want to be a leader for people.
I love that.
Okay. And you have the choice through your opposites to be a leader or a follower. Okay. Black, white, yin, yang.
It's all the same. So, every thought and therefore every intention has two components.
You going to climb it? You want to climb somewhere?
Yeah, I'll climb it.
It'd be intense.
I've climbed Mount Rainier.
Really?
Yeah, that's 14,000 feet?
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just got to go up to well over 24,000.
Yeah, it's a whole different ballgame.
It's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah, there's like basic. I know Shasta can be, and then Denali and
big boys.
Yeah,
I love doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I do too. Every thought and therefore every intention has two components: content and energy. And let me explain this. I thought this was really good. So let's say you want to, if we use the word manifest or whatever, and you want a new relationship.
What's wrong with manifesting? You can say manifest.
And then that intention is there. But the information that you have subconsciously and consciously in your mind, that is the raw data. That is the content.
Yeah.
So do you see where I'm getting at this?
Yeah.
So the energy is the power that drives the intention. But if the energy component that is intimately bound up with the law of polarity, then this energy component is powerfully influenced by your subconscious. And this is what I was trying to get into. You may have fears, guilt, worry, all these negative things that may be that you're feeling is negative that could cause you not to succeed in what you're doing. But by getting on the wall and doing something extremely hard like that,
full crimp, bro,
where you're having to feel the fear, where you're having to feel the fear and deal with it right then and there.
Yes.
Now that content comes out subconsciously, you begin to doubt yourself. Then you overcome that, and guess what you've done? Through the law of polarity, you've created success. That's the definition of success.
No, and that's what it is, right? Those are the achievements.
Yes.
Those are the benchmarks of your life.
Yes.
Okay? And our rock wall is just our metaphor for everything we do day in and day out. And people are like, oh, I have all these negative thoughts. Do you think I don't have a negative thought?
Right.
You know, in the meditation groups, tons of people come up to me and they just, they, not in a bad way, they just unload.
Yes.
And like, this is the negativity they're going through. I was like, listen, what you're telling me are the greatest learning points of your life. This is great difficulty for you because these are lessons that need to be learned. This is the opposite polarity that needs to be dealt with.
And as long as and this is what I want people to understand, abundance is inseparable from financial lack, love is inseparable from being alone, success is inseparable from failure. But as long as you recognize what polarity you're in, then you can say, okay, I want to be I know what polarity I'm in right now. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm in this negative polarity of financial lack. So what do I need to do? Well, how can I get my intention right, my content, that raw data that's coming in to have abundance?
Yeah.
But I've recognized where I'm at now. I'm not making excuses for it. And there's going to be a wall that I got to climb to get there. And I know I'm going to have a lot of resistance because I've lived my life in a lack of, I have a scarcity mindset, whatever it may be. So I have a lot of, to get to the wall, to the top, I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
It's the same as if you want to do 20 pull-ups and you may only be able to do one. You can get there.
Yeah.
Everyone can.
Everyone can. Think about Jack Ma, the guy who did Alibaba.
Yes. Yeah. I love him.
You know how that famous talk he gave?
Yeah.
He said, I was denied thousands of times. No. Bad idea. He was met with massive resistance.
Oh, massive.
But what happened? He integrated all of those no's, all of that resistance, and he refined himself. And now he's this superpower of retail.
Yes. He's the Amazon in China.
He's the Amazon of China.
And bigger all over the world.
And, I don't feel a lot of ego coming from him when I listen to him.
No, I don't either. He always talks he always talks like in a positive way of hard work.
It's very empowering,
keeping
for
your
responsibility,
mind. Yeah,
right?
Self-awareness.
Yeah, no, it's quite interesting. I really can appreciate that, but that is a deep understanding of those polarities and using it to your advantage, as you should.
Yeah.
But that only happens when you begin to recognize it, Jason.
And I want to be really practical, and this was something, what do you want to manifest? Now sit down and write the polar opposites.
Yeah. Write down the things.
Understand that both are
what's
equal.
going to prevent you from getting to that manifestation.
Yeah, because that's the there's a positive polarity and negative polarity, and you have to deal with both. And that's what I was getting to in the cave. People don't want to deal with the negative part.
No,
so they're never going to grow. You have to get on the wall.
You have to deal with the negative.
Yes.
I have negative thoughts.
Yeah.
I deal with them all the time.
Right.
But then I equalize them in my mind. So I'm going to talk about a deeper metaphysical sense here. Okay. Do you know if you're looking at a sine wave sound,
yes.
Go whoop, like an S, that's sideways.
I've seen them on an oscilloscope.
So yeah, that's exactly that's where you're measuring it from. So if you send a sine wave out, okay, it's going to hit a wall and it's going to bounce back and it's going to come back with the net frequency. So it's going to look like a figure 8
right
when it comes back on the oscilloscope. It cancels out that frequency. Okay. So I want you to consider something about your thoughts. I'm going to have a very positive thought. I'm going to chuck it out there like a boomerang.
Right.
Okay. I love the boomerang aspect of this. This is good because we all know how a boomerang works. When you throw it, it goes right out and it comes right back to you.
Right.
Right where you were standing. You just bomb it out there and it comes right back. Okay. So I'm going to send out this thought, this sine wave, this affirmation, this manifestation through my consciousness, this emotional output, this hormone through my body, whatever it might be, physical or, non-physical. It's going to hit some wall, an individual, a planetary boundary, the edge of our known creation. Okay. It's going to hit the internet and come right back, whatever this thing might be. And you're going to get back the polar opposite of what that thought was.
Yes, exactly.
I'm sending out all these good thoughts. What are you going to get back? Well, you're going to get the balancing nastiness back. You're going to get the trolls on YouTube.
So this is why people give up on affirmations.
People give up on affirmations because why is the negativity coming back?
I've been saying this every morning.
Because you're pushing so much positivity.
Right.
You need that balancing factor. The boomerang's going to come back at you. And when you throw that out, your positive thoughts, they're collecting other things that move into that frequency.
But it's more than that, Alex. It's
Jason? Tell me.
It's more than that. Because the negative is needed. Because what if you were just able? How would you feel if you were just able to easily climb up the wall and there was no resistance?
I wouldn't do it.
And then every day you could just walk over there to the rock climbing gym and just go. Broop.
No, it'd be lame.
But then, I
wouldn't do it. There's no challenge. There's no striving.
The resistance is the. People need to understand the pain, the resistance, the negative parts of things.
That's where the joy comes from.
Yes, suffering is a good thing.
Yeah. And
Buddhism talks about that.
Yeah, and it's not, in Buddhism, they're like, okay, suffering is a function of life, and you suffer until you die. Well, the suffering is truly at its core just a function of striving.
Right.
But your suffering is a mindset.
Yes.
Suffering is the idea that this is negative. This is trying to deteriorate me faster.
Yes.
Rather, it's like, I'm only suffering, but no, I'm going through a challenge.
Yes.
I'm suffering the challenge, but I'm positive. I'm joyous while I'm going through this. Because
I'm saying these affirmations. I'm believing in this. I'm doing these things. All this negativity hits me. And then next thing you know, it's like, well, we were talking about this earlier with me, and I won't get into it in super detail, but something personal. But I'm getting tons of negative energy back.
Yes, you are. So you're trying to be extra positive right now.
Yes.
But the thing is, you're recognizing the polarities. So
I have to recognize the polarity, and then how can I work within that polarity to understand it more, to become more self-aware, to see, how maybe I need to balance,
Correct.
So, but that's that. But once you recognize it, then you can see it. Now you've shown a light on it. Now it can be dealt with.
I feel like we're giving people like the deepest secrets to like doing life properly.
Because it's because if you don't deal with the negative polarity, it's like cutting the lights off in the gym and trying to climb up the wall.
That's a mess.
Yes.
They actually, there's a thing they do. They say, listen, if you really want to try it for the full experience, climb with your eyes closed. Yeah. You can grab any route you want, but understand what that's going to feel like in terms of your journey with the eyes closed.
So this is gonna be really exciting. Are you ready?
Oh God, yeah.
What's created with electron flow? Current.
Yeah, current.
So what is the current that we can create?
The current is dependent on. So think about our body as one big electron pump.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm just like really like constricting myself. Just,
Arnold.
Yeah, I'm pulling an Arnold Schwarzenegger of electrons, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm creating this electron pump, this pulse that comes out of me. I'm generating a current.
Yes.
The more thoughts I have for me to generate that current, I mean, it's just going to make it that much stronger, right? I'm adding to that flow. And in doing so, what's that going to do? That current also has to have an equalizing force that comes with it.
Yes. You can't use both polarities at once.
No, you can't. It's one or the other.
Right.
But
they cancel each other out.
They cancel each other out. Otherwise, you'd be like, But what you do is you can recognize them when they come in at their own time.
Yes.
And then that allows for the proper neutralization. That allows for you to be equalized.
Yes.
Oh, I'll take the positive when it comes in. I'll take the negative when it comes in. I'll take the light when it comes in, the dark when it comes in. I'm going to learn from it. And as I'm learning, right, and I'm being thankful for it, it allows me to come back to the center, to reground myself.
Yes. So what happens, how do you overcome a current in the ocean when you're out there?
You swim with it.
Yes.
So riptides, which is a nice metaphor. I like riptides, right? And this is also a good thing about all creational laws. Mm-hmm. So fear sets in. You're out there, you're having a blast. This is life. I'm joyous. I'm having a great time. I'm about 25 feet out. Waves are crashing behind me.
Right.
And then I realize, why is the water all foamy up top? I'm getting yanked out. The beach is getting further away. Fear starts to set in.
Yeah.
So the joy,
the resistance hits.
Yeah, resistance hits. Okay.
I'm taking out of
my norm, and I'm putting into a new current, a strong one.
Right.
But what do I do to work with it? How do I neutralize this action that's happening? How do I find that safety and joy again? I need to swim in a diagonal approach to this right here. So it's like, okay, now I know where to go. Once I've realized the opposite.
What if I fight the negative? What if I fight the polarity?
You exhaust yourself, and then you drown. Okay? Yeah. And if there's a lifeguard, maybe you're lucky. If not, you're screwed.
Right.
But essentially, that's what's happening. And so when we look at nature, the question is, when nature pulls you into that riptide, that current, one that you were like, my goodness, why is this happening to me? Work with it. Mm-hmm. Work with it. Understand how you can equalize yourself among those energies, among those polarities. And that goes for all these laws. Don't go against them.
Yes.
You're just going to be swimming, against the riptide.
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
You'll exhaust yourself every single day.
And I think it's because of a lot of us have these core limiting beliefs that have been given to us. And I know we're coming on the hour, but we have these core limiting beliefs that, and I know you don't like the word belief.
Can't stand it.
But I think this is a good.
This is why you and I are opposites.
Yeah, no, but I think this is a good time to use it.
Okay, go ahead.
Because we have these core limiting beliefs.
Yeah, you know why they're limited.
And so we're believing them. Why are they limited?
Why? Because the word belief already, it presumes that you don't have all the information.
Yes.
So you're naturally, when you believe, it naturally limits you because you haven't done the effort, the searching to figure out the truth for yourself. Right. So you have to accept facts or said facts.
Yes.
Or made up truths from somebody else without actually testing them for your own accountability. You're not responsible for that, so you have to believe, therefore limiting you in your core knowledge.
So that limiting belief, let's get real practical. Here we go. Limiting belief, I sit there and say, why am I worrying? Okay, that's a negative polarity. How can I bring an opposite polarity to this situation right now?
Correct.
So why am I worrying? Okay, well, let me write it down. Okay, I'm worrying because this or and this, and then you know, fear of having no money, fear of being alone, fear, whatever it may be. And so I write all these things, and then it's like, how can I bring the positive polarity to this?
Right.
And then once you begin to see that, it diffuses that emotion.
The anxiety.
Yes, it diffuses it all because you brought balance to it.
Do you know what
and
it
that
is?
Energy and you're starting to swim.
This is great.
Yeah.
When you write that down, like those fears, those negativity,
right?
You know what it all boils down to? I'm anxious. I'm anxious about my death. I'm anxious that I'm going to live my life in these polarities and run out of time. I'm going to run out of that really nice asset that's limited for this life.
Yeah.
But people have that anxiety because they lack the appreciation for the opposites or the creational laws.
But how many people have gone bankrupt or have gone? I mean, our own president was bankrupt at once.
Yeah, tons of people go bankrupt.
How many people have lost everything? And they said that was the best time in their life.
They needed that. That was that point of hard learning.
Yes, that was the negative. What we
even on my family. Listen, I'll give a point example for my family's journey. You know, we were quite affluent when I was younger for a good period of time. You know, dad's driving the Ferrari, big birthday parties, all that other stuff. You know, but then everything was lost, and then it goes to food stamps, state support, right? Bad fillings in your mouth from a shitty state dentist, like stuff of that. And then what you find is that needed to happen because when I reflect on my life, there's only so much teaching that my parents as my initial gurus could give me. And I was in this perspective that I was like untouchable. This is life. This is normal. This is what it is. It would have led me to an imbalanced perspective on where I needed to grow. And without feeling, that loss, because I was so consumed with material things, that's what the enjoyment was. Without having those go and feeling a different type of struggle, the polar opposite of what the life was, I couldn't truly appreciate what I had before. I didn't know what it was until it was gone.
Yes, exactly.
What's that?
But that you didn't know what it was till gone. That's the law of polarity working.
That's the law of polarity working right in front of me.
Yes.
Right. And I'm extremely thankful for it, but it also through that hardship taught me more responsibility. I got to work now. If I want to communicate, I got to pay for the cell phone bill myself. I got to feed myself. If I want to go somewhere, I got to pay for those tickets. I got to work 2-3 jobs. Right. Doesn't matter if I'm 15, 16, 17, you got to go do it.
Right.
You don't have a choice. This is it. But that afforded me that learning. So that complete polar heavy energy that came with it, that needed to happen.
Because there was so much positive energy that was happening.
It was frankly, it was whacked out of balance.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when I think back to it, I'm like, that's just jacked. And actually, I feel better integrating what I've learned to say that, wow, I'm glad things didn't continue that way.
Right.
I'm very pleased actually with the outcome of, how the family history went, and where my place was within that. And I'm thankful for it. And it was a function of those opposites and only looking back.
Yes.
And again, you have opposites. I can look forward or I can look backwards. Okay. That's all it is. And that affords us that deeper learning and using that interplay of positive and negative with whatever you do in your day or your life or your thoughts or your emotions, whether you're writing them down, journaling, or having the discussion with someone, it's the most practical application of your learning. And then the other creational laws, they're a function of your choice.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Here's your learning. Now do you want to make a choice to integrate that learning? But the opposites are there for you. That is the content. That is the current. Okay. That's what keeps the lights on. All right. That's what keeps the media streams going. That's what keeps the brain testing itself, working. Because if it doesn't get worked, it's like a muscle, right? If you don't work it, squeeze it. Okay. If you don't strain it, so I can get loose or I strain it. Without doing that, I have no growth.
Right.
These things are right in front of us. So use that practical application to everything we do in life, and you'll see great gains, phenomenal gains, material and immaterial, spiritual, emotional, consciousness, subconscious, you name it, they're all there.
But I want people to realize, we'll be done, but we have this battery pack. We can have these polarities. We can do all this, but we have an unlimited battery pack we can tap into.
Yeah.
That perfectly aligns with us.
Right. You have that deep, infinite, primal power that runs throughout creation.
Yes.
Okay. All that, I don't care if you call it 0 point, dark energy, whatever it is, it's there.
Yes.
It's the thing that animates all of us. It's that beautiful celestial song that rings through us like a sine wave. Okay, that energizes and makes our cells pump, and it pushes the prana through our bodies. That's what you got to focus on, and tap into it. Tap into the opposite,
because it's unlimited,
completely unlimited,
and then it allows you to operate, if you want to use this word, supernaturally,
and naturally supernatural.
Yeah, just right? Super de duper.
And if you bring both opposites together, you unify.
Yes,
and when you unify, you make things one. So what does that mean? All is one.
All is one.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.